Vice Chair McQuarrie, Member Burge, Member Mozingo, Member Nori, Member Schaefer, Member Wiggins. A quorum is present.
Comment. The public is invited at this time to comment and discuss any topic that's relevant to or within the authority of the Open Space Advisory Committee. But I like to ask sometimes if you would wait till that item on the agenda comes up before you speak, but you can speak now if you want. That's just a question. So you have, I see Denny's hand go up. Oh, you brought your timer. Yeah, but I have to wait for it to run, so I'm wasting time if you want. Oh, you started it already. No, you don't. It's all right.
Thank you, Chair. Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. And I had checked with Nancy, the city manager, about whether or not it was appropriate to have the foundations on the agenda, as most of its focus is actually on parks, recreation, and open spaces, which is plural, which means to me, and my definition is the areas not utilized on a park for fields or playground equipment, and those areas that would be considered landscaping or extra on that property of a park, not open space. Open space is an identity to itself, and it's not 6,940 acres that you all are keeping track of. So you've got a lot on your plate. I don't feel that the foundation statement is other than just promoting the fact that they are great and appreciated, and that their work with the parks and recreation is hugely appreciated by myself and others, and that they play a big part. But I do not feel that they particularly have a place in this particular meeting. So for me, that was a little bit of an inquiry. But also, I would look forward to having the opportunity to learn more about the different types of definitions for open space and environmental issues that we're having for horse ranch, and different considerations for any other properties in town. I looked up all of them. Your open space areas are quite vast, and to have help from that foundation in the future towards those open spaces would be very appreciated. Right now, I do not feel that they really meet the criteria of your meeting. So that's something to bring up. It's tough too, because I know how much they're appreciated, but I think they have a place right now. And if they want to bump it up and help us with getting more rangers or code enforcement or trash pickup or litter and such like that, I appreciate it. But meanwhile, I don't think they fit on the agenda. I will look forward to their presentation, however, and the presentation by the others that are today on the agenda. But 7A, I don't think fits. Thank you.
Hey, Denny, this isn't for discussion because it's not on the agenda, but we do have a representative on that board. Not the board, but at those meetings. So we do go to those meetings. We have a representative there, and there's been programs I've been involved with as open space to work with them. So I just, not for discussions, just information, so you'll know that there has been a part of us involved. Not for discussion, just letting you know, otherwise, because it's not on the agenda. So now you can put it in your notebook, and then you'll understand that we have been involved with them.
But 7A is on the agenda, so that's still open.
Okay, you can talk to it again then. Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Yeah, no. Okay, great. Number 4, Open Space Committee meeting of February 18th. It's for approval of the minutes, and I have one teeny little change, and I think it's my own fault because I didn't know if it was Kuntz Street or Edmonds, and I think the poor recorder had me figuring out what street it was. So it says on page 6, it's 7 minutes 04:44. The street should be Kuntz, not Edmonds. That needs to be fixed. And I could see why you would be confused because I was confused. So that was a test to show you I read the minutes. And it's not very often we ever find a mistake in our minutes. We have an excellent person in charge of that for us. Thank you. So then I have a motion unless there's any other changes or need a motion. Anybody second? Second. Thank you. Call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. One abstain. They weren't here. Okay, so now we move into number 5, 5A, for possible action. Discussion and possible action regarding proposed improvements, including construction of a dwelling, an accessory dwelling, and associated road improvements on portions of assessor's parcel map, APN. Oh my God, that looks like I'm in the planning commission. And I haven't done this in a long time. 0077-051-084, 007-051-82, 007-051-09, 007-051-70, including Horse Creek Ranch, which is subject to a conservation easement. And then I also have a, Brian, help me out. Get away.
Keith Schaefer. My firm was involved in helping to prepare some of the engineering documents for the special use permit that was submitted to the city. I don't think I have a conflict. I wasn't involved in the project, but I'm going to recuse myself anyway if there's any action to be taken on this item.
All right, great. Now, some committees have you sit out in the audience, but I don't think I have to do that, Todd.
No, that's not required.
Okay, good, thanks. All right, great. So we move ahead, and who is going to, Lindsay Boyer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and OSAC members. So for this item, I just wanted to start by giving you kind of some background related to conservation easements in general, since we do have a couple new members, just for your edification. So a conservation easement is basically a restriction that is placed on a property to protect its resources, whether those are natural or cultural or both. And essentially what it is a private landowner and an entity, whether that's a nonprofit or a governmental agency, enter into a legally binding agreement in which the development rights for that property are basically removed from the property in order to protect those values. So it's a great conservation tool. It allows the property to remain in private ownership while also protecting it in perpetuity. Those restrictions will remain in place even if the property is sold, as this one has been. And ultimately, the private property owner will receive tax benefits or payments related to basically selling those development rights. So each conservation easement is unique, and ultimately it's dependent on kind of the original landowner's desires for the properties. For example, a landowner may choose to reserve certain development rights for portions of the property if they want to, for example, build a home. And so that's all completely allowable within the tenets of the conservation easement. It's all spelled out in the easement document when it's being created at the get. It also outlines allowable and prohibited activities for the property. And ultimately, the holder of the conservation easement is required to do annual monitoring and ensure that, the property owner is in compliance with the tenets of the easement. So the property that we're talking about tonight, Horse Creek Ranch, is located off of Highway 50 and kind of the Kings Canyon area. So Carson City purchased the conservation easement for this property in 2009 using state Question 1 grant funds. So Carson City is the easement holder, and the open space program is charged with that annual monitoring and ensuring compliance on the easement. So back in 2009, it was approximately 175 acres that were put under that original conservation easement. And some of the original reasons for conservation for the property was to protect the historic agriculture activities, the open space, the wildlife habitat, the watershed protection, scenic values, all of those things in perpetuity. So just to kind of help orient you, in your packet, attachment number 2 is a map of the property. I just kind of wanted to walk you through the property itself. So there's 3 different parcels, and they're labeled 1, 2, and 3. And I wanted to note that there's kind of a red cross-hatched area that straddle parcels 1 and 2. So ultimately, this was a portion of the property that was excluded from the conservation easement. So the easement document identified those 25 acres to be completely, outside of the easement, essentially. So in 2020, the property was sold to Mr. Frank Hachuli, and we've been working ever since then with a caretaker for the property, Mr. Kosker, and he kind of does a lot of the day-to-day management and things out there. So, as noted in your packet, Mr. Hochuli plans to build a home, a garage, and an accessory dwelling unit on the property. These proposed improvements are located in that red crosshatched area that's outside of the conservation easement. The Planning Commission approved a special use permit for those proposed improvements on March 26th of this year. But in addition to those improvements that are proposed, there's also some access road improvements that are needed to make the road compliant with Carson City development standards for residential access roads. And so a portion of that roadway does fall on parcel number 3. So it does fall on one of the parcels that is pertinent to the conservation easement. And so in your packet, I also included the original conservation easement. It includes several exhibits. One of those exhibits, Exhibit B, is the permitted uses and practices. And in Section 3B, it basically outlines the various improvements that can be made, one of which is roads. And so, the improvements to the access road must be compliant with local codes. And ultimately, the only requirement in the easement for any road improvements on that particular parcel is, one, they cannot be in the meadow of the property, which you can see on your map, kind of that area in green where it says irrigated pasture. That's where the meadow is. So you can see that the road is, well outside the meadow, kind of in the upland area there. And then the second requirement is that ultimately the property owner needs to notify us within 45 days of construction that they're undertaking this, and we have to, provide written approval, assuming that everything is compliant with the easement, which it is. One of the items that was discussed during the Planning Commission meeting and the special use permit approval is they actually amended their conditions of approval to allow the road to meet specifications for rural access roads. So the applicant, the homeowner, is actually working closely with the city engineer and city fire to ultimately determine what those specifications will be. So that process is still ongoing. But for example, they amended that to allow for permeable surfaces rather than requiring that it be paved. So some of those discussions are still in progress. But basically, in summary, the proposed residential use and the associated road improvements are compliant with the tenets of the conservation easement. We'll be continuing to work closely with Mr. Kosker and his team as we move through the process. We'll be actively monitoring during construction, making sure that the tenets of the easement are maintained and they're not, going outside the footprint of those, 25 acres, for example. So with that, I'll take any questions, and I just want to note that Mr. Kosker is in the audience today if anyone has specific questions for him. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Start from the right. Brian, anything? Questions? Oh, you can't talk. What a dumb thing to say. You're invisible. That's why they put you in the audience so the chairman wouldn't goof it up. So, no, thanks, Brian. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead. He's fine. Jay, any comments? Mary's does.
I have a quick question. What happens to the road? I mean, do they need it to build it up so like larger trucks can go in and out to construct the home?
So one of the requirements, those Carson City development standards for residential roads, one of those requirements, for example, is that the road has to accommodate certain width and grading standards. So emergency vehicles, for example, can get back there. So that's an example of why the road needs to be improved to allow for emergency vehicle access. I think that's one of the primary reasons.
I had an inquiry more than, I guess, a question. The road that's going in from the Spooner side, I assume he can still go out Kings Canyon in case he needs to get out Kings Canyon, which is a lot shorter distance. And going down to Spooner, and then Spooner, as he knows, if you come back out of it, you got to go clean up to where the barricades are stopped on the highway. So you can't make a left out of your place, go home. So it's like, I guess they're prepared for that. I was surprised that the road was on the mountain, this on the Spooner side instead of on the Kings Canyon side. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, great question. So there was a reason for that. So, the property can be accessed from Kings Canyon Road. As you guys may or may not know, Kings Canyon Road is a historic road. It's part of the old Lincoln Highway. So in order to make those improvements that the road needs in order to meet the development standards would be very challenging with the historic nature of the road. And so that still remains access to the property for, emergencies or something, not emergency personnel, but, if you got to get
understand.
out. But as far as improving the road, that would have probably been not allowable with the State Historic Preservation Office and the historic nature of the road.
So the planning commission made sure that like fire trucks get up there and all these kind of things that I don't know the standards for rural road. That's the first time I ever heard of that, which would be a private road. But they have to have standards to get into his place. So the only bummer to me was when you leave, you got to go turn right and go to Lake Tahoe to turn around almost. But that happens. And, well, maybe he could buy an underpass or something there. Not on the budget, probably, I would guess. So no, I think it's great. What a wonderful place to live. And it protects the conservation easement, and actually a presence there would protects it even more probably. There won't be trespassers coming in with somebody owning a lot in there in the house and a visible place that somebody's living there. So that's great. The whole thing's great. And we always appreciate people that are willing to work with us on those types of things, as you know. We get excited about that. So thank you. So is there any other comments? Questions? Okay, I'll call for public comment.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you very much, Chair. I have a consideration, and it's an observation as well. My consideration is that this property hasn't been, the next item would be 6A, and that would be the assessment, the annual deal should, I think, have been first, and then after that, the property considerations, but that's my look at it. And the next thing is, it would be helpful when you're telling me certain items, give me a page. I had a bit of trouble catching up. But the main thing is for me is that the road consideration is big because it's like Miss Lindsay Boyer said, it is in a conservation easement area, and I'm very interested in finding another alternative for that road's development for the weight and the width and such requirements. And I think that Prison Hill 3 is an example of a road that has weight requirements similar to what's being put on this particular piece of property's road, and that it would qualify it. Now, the cutback that they're considering for that road has to be changed, so that's quite a bit of engineering. And I think that type of engineering was put into the Loomis considerations on Phase 3. That is a set, what it's called now is a multi-purpose trail. To me, it's always been a road, and when it was used, the utilization of AASHTO design and engineering, it made it a road to me. But I was told that roads are only what the definition makes them. If we decide it's not a road, it's not a road. To me, the construction made it a road. However, I think that it might be an alternative to asphalt on this particular situation. So I would like that to be just thrown out there as a possibility. And if so, I think that would solve the impermeable type situation where water would be able to get through it, and it still would have the same grading and considerations of an asphalt road without having the asphalt. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Danny. Oh, you got the clicker. Oh, he had I wasn't paying attention. Clicker. Okay, so we're back to the board for any other discussion or a motion. I get silence. I got 3 of you. I can't do it. Well, this is for action, so what would the action be?
The item was listed as a possible action simply so that you could give your comments and give any recommendations that you might have.
Okay,
There's no action that's actually required for this item.
Okay.
So if it's the pleasure of the board not to take any action, you don't have to take any.
that's what their pleasure looked like it was going for me. That's a wonderful piece of news you just gave me. And I remember that from last time, actually, that it's listed that way in case something did come up that allowed that opportunity. So we're not going to take action this item, and we move on to the next item on the agenda then. 5B, for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the annual monitoring report for the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement for 2024. Marina, you're up.
For the record, Marina Lovejoy, Senior Natural Resource Specialist. So yeah, Lindsay mentioned that we go out there every year and we do annual monitoring to assess the natural resources on the property and make sure that the landowners are in compliance with the conservation easement. So we did that on October 1st of last year. Generally, the landowner is in compliance. There's some natural resource concerns that we've been noticing over the last several years that we still mentioned in this report. One really fantastic thing that happened last fall was we were able to meet the Natural Resource Conservation Service, a federal agency, 2 staff from there, from the local Minden office, to review some of the natural resource concerns with us, and they provided some initial kind of feedback on remedying those concerns. And they expressed at the time, October of last year, interest in assisting us further, but that remains to be seen whether they're able to do that moving forward. I will say that I've been in contact with the Nevada Division of Forestry, and they're interested in helping us and available, and we have a tentative site visit scheduled for later this summer to kind of keep that ball rolling. I do also want to mention that Mr. Hachuli and the caretaker, Mr. Kosker, are very in the loop with what we're seeing out there. They're very interested in addressing these natural resource concerns, especially the forest health concerns. So we're really encouraged about that and hopeful that we can get some good work done in the coming years. So with that, I do just want to make you all aware of a couple of those natural resource concerns that we're noticing. I did mention forest health, that the density of the trees is quite thick, and there is dwarf mistletoe present. So the NRCS recommended there, of course, doing some thinning to address those concerns. Another concern that we're seeing is stream bank channel incision and head cutting in the meadows. This is most likely due to cattle access to those waterways. The NRCS suggested exclusion fencing to keep the cattle out of those streams, and then installing what's called beaver dam analogs that will kind of reverse channel incision in that meadow. Another concern is the amount of invasive species in the pasture as well. Bull thistle, common mullein, oxeye daisy. None of those are on the noxious weed list for the state, but they are invasive, so something that we want to keep an eye on. Getting rid of those would also improve the forage condition of the meadow for the cattle. Let's see, so those are the natural resource concerns that we're seeing. On the other side of the other road, on the other side of the property, not what Lindsay was addressing earlier, there is some erosion. The landowner has expressed willingness and the ability to repair that in the years to come. Let's see. Last summer, we had a volunteer thistle dig. 2 staff and 2 muscle-powered volunteers were out there to help pull thistle in the meadow. This year, we're anticipating a much bigger turnout with, oh gosh, who's the group? Yeah, several people from the National Guard expressed interest in doing a volunteer project in the city. And so we thought that'd be a great fit to go out and see a beautiful property, get about maybe 15 people out there to help pull thistle. So we'll do that most likely later in the summer. I didn't notice any changes to the cattle loafing area, which is by the historic cabins, which is good. And no other findings generally that we saw. The landowners are in compliance, and it is a truly beautiful property, so I hope that you all can make it out there.
Any comments, questions, Brian?
You got to call me by my right name, or else I'm not going to answer you.
Oh, what did I? I'm sorry.
That's okay, George.
It's all right.
Um,
I'm telling. It's a senior moment.
yes, I get
I
it.
have gray hair, and
I
it
get it.
allows me
Ke-
a little
I'm
bit
Keith.
of latitude.
I'm Keith.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
That I knew.
Dipstick.
I think this is great work that you're doing, and I'm excited that you're monitoring and keeping tabs on that. I might, you invoked the Horse Creek Ranch and the special use permit and the road or the activity through there. And I know I recused myself from that item, and I don't want to do that, but there was an item in the special use permit that the city granted for that improvement that specifically said that they were to bring that before this group to get and request express written approval for their project or their proposal. And so I'm just thinking, if we don't act on that, do they not get what they are looking for from this group relative to the management of that? Do we need to work in some sort of written approval for their plans as this group?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So that's language that's written into the conservation easement that basically if they seek an undertaking like the road improvements, that they have to seek written approval from Carson City. And then as part of the special use permit, because there's nothing that necessarily triggered it coming before OSAC, I wanted to make sure that it did come before OSAC. So I added that in as a condition. Ultimately, the written approval would just come from Carson City. It's probably a letter that I would write. So it doesn't need to come from OSAC specifically, but that condition was put in so that we could bring it,
Okay.
before you guys as well.
I just want to make sure that they're able to meet their condition of approval, since it was a favorable review, but the actual condition specifically said that they shall go to OSAC to request express written approval from the city for proposed disturbance from the road. So just want to make sure that in our review of that, with regard to management of that we're able to give them what they need to meet that condition of approval. But other than that, it's good. There was conversation in the report about this erosion area. That's, what do they call that? I don't know what was referred to as the term.
Do you mean in the meadow?
Yeah.
I refer to that as channel incision
Okay.
to the streams that come through that meadow from up in the
And
hills.
it's kind of subsiding. Is there a way to arrest that, or you just?
Yeah,
let it-
one technique is that the NRCS suggested was using what's called beaver dam analogs, where you basically kind of create, a beaver dam to stop that stream, and it kind of builds a dam and the stream ponds behind it. And then over time, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
There's some other techniques too that they suggested, but that was one. That's kind of a hot topic lately, so I'd be interested in doing that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll say something. I thought it was kind of funny we're getting the report after we get the request to kind of review a plan. I thought we were kind of backwards in order. But I was a little lame and am reading this agenda as we speak, so should have caught that sooner. Bad on me. The other question I have is, what are those, and I'm sure you've told me this before, Lindsay, what are the compliance when they're out of violation? What are the repercussions if things don't get fixed? Like I saw the report, they're still in compliance with most things. What are the effects if they are not?
Good question. So there's a whole section in the conservation easement that speaks to if a landowner is out of compliance. So say we went out there one year and all of a sudden they have built an entire golf course. That would be out of compliance with the easement. And so I don't know off the top of my head exactly what those exact protocol, but the protocol's all spelled out in the easement. Ultimately, we would, get our DA involved in the process, but they are absolutely in compliance. That hasn't been an issue at all. But there is protocol spelled out in any conservation easement if the landowner is out of compliance.
I have a question. I was wondering, do we have a timeline when some of these projects will start? Because we've been seeing these photos for years.
Sure, Marina Lovejoy for the record. That's a great question, Mary, Member Burge. We don't have a timeline, and I will say that for several years now, we've been seeking guidance from the feds and from the state, trying to get some more opinions on what's going on and some more recommendations on how we can treat. And last year, I was really thankful that we were able to get the NRCS out there. And so, in light of things, I'm not sure that we can expect their assistance this year. I'm trying to get more assistance from the state at this point. And they have expressed their availability. And so we'll just keep pushing that ball along. And there's also an element of funding to get some of these things taken care of. We do have a stewardship account, about $40,000 or $50,000. So there is some money to play with. But the nature of these projects is they can be quite costly and time consuming. And so right now we're just trying to get a better sense of the costs and the time and exactly what techniques we would like to implement.
All right, thank you.
And I'll add to that, Lindsay Boyer for the record. So when the property was acquired, one of the requirements at that time is that there was like a forest stewardship plan that was created, and NDF was the entity that helped, they helped create those plans all over the state. And that plan is more than 10 years old, so it's since expired. And so that's part of the reason we're seeking help from NDF is to basically update that plan with the current conditions. And then ultimately that plan is used for a prescription to go out and do the treatment, whether it's funded through the stewardship account or from the private landowner or through grant purposes. But we kind of need that foundational document in order to have a prescription to work off of. We specialize in natural resources, but we really rely on our partners, especially when it comes to forestry things, to help us guide those prescriptions. So that's the reason for the delay. And they're busy folks, so we just try to remain on their radar because I know the landowner as well as the neighboring property owner is definitely interested in making sure that these forest stewardship activities are taking place.
All right, thank you for that. I know that there's a lot of moving parts to these, so thank you.
So, is there a requirement somewhere in the agreement that's monitored annually and then report? Or is that something we're just because we're good stewards?
It's a requirement. Annual monitoring is a requirement.
That would make a lot of sense. My next question is if NDF does, who gets the tree value when they cut them down?
That's definitely a conversation that would be had with NDF. I don't know how forestry practices take place here. If we were in Colorado, I'd be able to tell you that where I used to work, but I don't know about that. But NDF would definitely have the answer to that
Usually
question.
they don't log, they just burn. So
I
there's
mean-
value in the tree, so you would hope that since there's a sawmill only a few miles away now, that the
Ye-
value would be pretty high actually if it's that short of a distance to the old sawmill.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, the quality of the trees, definitely. And yeah,
Right,
but
well,
there's,
they've taken all the burn trees, so they're at a different market at that sawmill.
sure. There's lots of options for dealing with the biomass, and that would all be part of the conversation and what the landowner's comfortable with and what NDF and whoever actually does the thinning work, what the, what's possible out there, all to be discussed.
So you explained it later on at the end of this conversation that all of the things that are found wrong are under the budget of open space to fix versus the owner that gave the conservation easement. So it becomes a responsibility of us to take care of those properties now budget-wise.
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So there is, as Marina mentioned, there is a stewardship account associated with, so that was an original endowment from the original landowner when we acquired the easement. So those are not open space funds that came from the original landowner. We typically don't tap into that account, so it's just kind of sitting there waiting for a project to take place. But as far as use of like question 18, quality of life, open space funding, we would not utilize those specifically. We're basically here in a advisory capacity, because we are the natural resource specialists, we can help see these issues and connect the landowner with the right people like NDF or NRCS to help find a solution. And then whether it's that stewardship account funding that is associated with the property or, the landowner pays for the treatment independently, those are both options.
That's actually great that you guys have such good, I want to say report, not only reporting, but you need to know a lot to manage those places. I mean, it isn't something you learn in an hour, it's something you learn over time. So you can't go anywhere because they have to replace you. A marina there too. So, and I'm trying to phrase that in a sense as I think you guys do a really good job of making sure what needs to be done with that conservation is done. And they report to us, and it's our responsibility that we review and make comments that if we're concerned. So is any other comments from Keith? No, so I guess is that listed as a possible yes? So I guess I'll call for public comment then.
Denny French, thank you, Chair. It's, I'm deja vu. It's considerations that had been brought up the last annual report that have not changed, from gate work to loafing area, overgrazing, to water area protections. They're all still an issue. Now, if the property is ours and the people using it had bought into this saying they would take care of those issues, I don't even see why, except for out of charity, we're going to do weeds, and that's with volunteers. But I'm very frustrated with the fact that I'm looking at pictures that were taken with two different types of cameras, even when I went online to see them. So it didn't show the difference as much as I would have liked to see, or improvements that were supposed to be done in the time period between the observations and the reviews. I do appreciate them going up there, but unless there's some changes that I'm seeing from having gone up there and make these assessments, I really am very uncomfortable with it being considered. I think that the watershed area that it is, not even having water tests or soil tests done, doesn't give you a starting point to go from, to then measure the differences during the different seasonal changes and between observations. I don't think they go up there near enough, and I don't think they're really encouraging or really promoting the people on that ranch to do what they had considered needed before. So I don't think they're holding them as accountable as I think they should. And so that's one of my concerns. But the fact that they're not having a test for soil or water, how can we have a starting point of understanding if there's any changes or deterioration in that if we don't have a starting reading? It's like when I go in for blood work, they get a deal. And if I'm not dead and dying, they're not going to worry about it. But the next time, if it's dropped or it's gone up, they're going to make adjustments. And in this case, there's no baseline. So I think that should be encouraged to be part of the review and considerations. I also am discouraged by the fact that we've got trees up there that are diseased, and as long as they stay, depending on what they are, mites are bad, beetles are bad, but if you take those trees down, you have to dispose of them differently than through logging, because it spreads the beetles and it spreads the mites if you put them in with anything you're carrying, and it can then spread. So I think that's a very important part to take real good attention of. And as far as the invasive weeds, and the areas that I feel are still being overgrazed, from the pictures even, I would like that meadow to have some refreshment. And I think the idea of damming some of that stream area, and you've got two springs on it, and that water is very important for Clear Creek. And so I think we need to guard it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bring it back here. Is there any other comments on that agenda item before we move on?
I'd like to make just a comment. I appreciate your comments, Denny, but I just want to remind ourselves and everybody, this is still private property, right? And so as much as we as a public would like to see certain things done on somebody's private property, it's really not our prerogative to do so. The only thing we can do is enforce the conditions of the conservation easement. And so it's just maintaining the parameters for which they can develop it. It doesn't mean that we need to say, hey, they've got to go in and improve it or maintain it to certain levels higher or above what the conservation easement requirements are. So just thought I would put my 2 cents in there.
We're done? Okay, next agenda item for discussion only.
Wait.
Presentation discussion regarding the Carson City B City USA number 76 program. Lindsay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item before you is just kind of an update on Carson City's Bee City USA 76 program. Mr. Chair and I were talking, and it's spring. Now's a good time to start thinking about bees, and there's definitely been a lot of news related to bees in 2025. So I thought it was a good time to kind of bring this back before you as well as the public. So today I'll be talking about the benefits that have come to Carson City through becoming a Bee City USA. So just to kind of start off with the importance of pollinators. So who is a pollinator? Bees, butterflies, bats, birds, beetles, and small mammals are all creatures that provide pollination services, and they're all incredibly important. Pollinators are absolutely essential. About 80% of all flowering plants throughout the entire globe, and 75% of those being crop species, are dependent on the services of pollinators to reproduce. So they are absolutely vital. 35% of the world's food depends on pollinators. We always say that 1 in 3 bites of food that we eat is from the services of a pollinator. So all the good things in life, coffee, chocolate, various fruits, vegetables, almonds, all of those things come from pollination services. So they're absolutely critical, not only to our ecosystem, but also to our food chain. And as mentioned, bees especially have been in the news a lot lately, talking about different threats to pollinators. So pollinator populations are definitely in decline. They have been in decline for a number of years, especially honeybees, as well as there's been a lot of news about monarch populations as well. There is a recent figure from Washington State University that the honeybee colonies in the US are projected to decline up to 70% in 2025. There's a lot of reasons for that. You know, honeybees are ultimately, you know, kind of a farm animal at this point. They're, you know, moved in their boxes from you know, farm to farm to provide those pollination services. So anytime you have a lot of animals in one area, you end up with diseases. There's issues with mite infestations, viral diseases, nutrient deficiencies from being on kind of those monoculture properties. So there's a lot of challenges with those large scale honeybee operations. But that 70% figure is pretty staggering for sure. So it's absolutely something that, you know, there are things that we can be doing on our end to help preserve and protect pollinators of all kinds, as well as honeybees. So that's kind of part of the purpose of our program. But just kind of other things that result or cause population decline in our pollinator species. One of them, just urban and residential development. There's, you know, just less habitat from the building of homes, you know, throughout the world. Large scale habitat loss, like that seen from after a massive wildfire, that has been huge, especially for the monarch populations as they migrate. Some of those areas in California have seen some devastating wildfires. Overuse or misuse of pesticides or herbicides, that can be a big one. Invasive species, I mentioned disease, parasites, and pathogens, and then certainly just a changing climate. All of these factors present threats to our pollinator populations. So what can we do? I always say the best thing that you can do to protect our pollinators is to create habitat. So planting diverse pollinator-friendly flowers in your yard. You want to make sure that you have varied blooming times. So you're trying to stretch out when you have those flowers blooming so that you have kind of continuous blooming all the way from early spring all the way into late summer, so that you're providing as long of a period of time of forage as possible. There's other kind of cultural things you can do. The concept of leaving your leaves has become popular in the last few years. It's something I do. So instead of raking up all your leaves in the fall, you actually leave all of those all winter long, because pollinators will overwinter in those leaf piles. If you don't want to leave all your leaves, because I know firsthand how frustrating that is, you can leave certain areas of your property where there's a small amount of leaves, so you're still providing that nesting habitat. You can install bee hotels. That brings in some other types of bees besides the honeybees, like our mason bees. So again, creating habitat wherever you can. Um, pesticide use, so either reducing or really making sure that you are very knowledgeable about what you're applying when you're applying it. Something as simple as avoiding spraying onto flowering plants. So doing your herbicide application early before the plants have ever flowered is a way to avoid having impacts to pollinator species. So that can be a great one. And then along with, reducing herbicide, practicing integrated pest management. So not always turning to herbicide as the first kind of line of defense when it comes to weeds, removing by hand or, placing down mulch, things like that, that can help reduce your weeds and reduce your reliance on herbicide. And then education is huge. That's one of the main tenets of this whole Bee City program, is to really just educate the public, educate homeowners, educate kids, educate everyone that we can about the importance of pollinators and what we can do to help support them. So for those of you who don't know, Carson City is a Bee City USA. We became a Bee City in 2018. We were the very first Bee City in Nevada and the 76th in the nation. I haven't looked up this figure lately, but we're up to like 400 or something like that throughout the United States now. So we really got on kind of the ground floor of the Bee City program, which is amazing. So basically with this designation, Carson City has pledged to protect pollinators and promote pollinator conservation initiatives throughout Carson City. So kind of what this looks like, we have a steering committee. It's just a committee of citizens, and I'm one of the members of that committee. Basically, the goal is just to engage the community in talking about and promoting pollinators and creating habitat wherever we can. We do this through a variety of means. We do a Pollinator Month proclamation every year at the board to raise awareness for pollinators. We try to increase public awareness through education. So we do that through all kinds of events and displays at the library, all kinds of things that I'll be showing you throughout this presentation. And then creating habitat. So those are kind of our main pillars of the committee. So these are just some of the initiatives that Carson City has taken on since becoming a Bee City USA. One of the main ones, I keep harping on habitat creation, but that's the biggest one for us. So there have been many pollinator gardens that have been installed throughout Carson City since 2018. These photos are just a few of them. The lower two are both in open space. So wherever we can include pollinator-friendly plantings in open space, we're doing it. The photo on the right there, that is the Empire Ranch trailhead. Used to be just an old disturbed lot. And through Marina's hard work, we have been slowly turning that into a thriving pollinator habitat. In the future, we want to add a bee hotel and some signage and some other things right in there. But so far, it's just native pollinator plantings that we have so far. The other photo on the lower left, that's from the Buzzy's Ranch Trail. So it was just kind of an old area that used to be a cattle loafing area. When we built the trail, it was totally cut off from the cattle. So we've been working to restore that and putting in pollinator-friendly plants there. And the photo up top is actually from a pollinator garden, that we did at the library. So again, wherever we can make habitat, we can. One of the most exciting things that we have done in the last few years is we partnered with the Sagebrush in Prisons Project. So we worked with them to provide native pollinator seed. The residents of Northern Nevada Correctional Center grew those plants up for us. They got to learn about the importance of pollinator plants. They got to help grow them. And then we were able to plant those into open space. So it was a great partnership. Just more on kind of habitat creation. These are all more on our parks side. So these are kind of two examples. We have had a lot of interest in some of the new parks that have been built as part of developments here in Carson City. So one of these is at Shoals Ranch, and then the other one is at the Mountain Street Trailhead area. We've worked with developers to kind of put together these interpretive signs. And what's neat about this is I feel like the developers kind of came to us and thought, wouldn't it be cool if we included something like this? And we were able to help facilitate that for them. So this is just another example of both that habitat as well as education that we have both in open space and parks. Just some historic projects that have been done since becoming a Bee City USA. So the Foothill Garden and Trail and Bee Hotel. So the 2019 Chamber of Commerce Leadership Group, they worked to create this wonderful bee hotel. For any of you who have not been up there, it's behind the Cancer Center. This was a really cool project. This was right on kind of the heels of us becoming a bee city. And so they wanted to do something to kind of celebrate that. So they built this amazing bee hotel. There's all kinds of education up there. And then lots of pollinator friendly plants that were planted as part of that project. And then 2020 Chamber Leadership Group kind of doubled down on all those pollinator efforts. They came in and they planted some pollinator friendly trees as well as some more plants. And then in addition to the Bee Hotel and the Foothill Garden as part of the greenhouse project and all of the amazing things going on up there, we also have what's called the Serenity Trail. So this is just a really short segment of trail. And the idea is that people at the Cancer Center who are undergoing treatment, or their families, they can come out, take a walk on this trail, spend a moment in nature. So they installed this really beautiful art with words of encouragement, just really tried to, add beauty to that space in addition to the pollinator-friendly services. One of the things that I think is most amazing that Carson City has done is we developed the pollinator-friendly plant list. So after we became a Bee City USA, I put together this list. It has like over 200 plants on it, all either local or locally adapted species that are all really beneficial towards pollinators. We have this available online for the public. We give this information out to whoever, whenever, at various events. The QR code actually here will take you to that list. But the most exciting thing that we've done is we Carson City, actually require the developers, whether they're developing a housing development or what have you, they're required to choose 50% of their plant palette from this list. So going back to habitat creation being one of our main tenants, this is creating habitat all over Carson City through those efforts. And it's been well received by the developers, pretty much no pushback there. So it's just an easy way to continue making that habitat throughout the city. I talked about integrated pest management. This is something that we talk a lot about at different events. Of course, when we do volunteer projects where we're removing weeds, we're always talking about, the benefits to pollinators that come along with that. So just a little education on integrated pest management. Prevention is key. So planting desirable species in the first place. A lot of times people will come in and they'll clear cut all their sagebrush from a fuel reduction perspective, but they won't put anything back. And so then what comes back are a bunch of weeds, and then they're having to spray the weeds, and it just creates a revolving door. So it's really important to plant those desirable species up front so that you don't get into that never-ending cycle of weed management. The other biggest thing with weed management is you need to know what you're removing. You need to identify it because different plants, they may be an annual, they may be a perennial. And if you go in and start removing a perennial species by hand, sometimes you can make your problem much worse. So it's important to know what you're working with and know what the appropriate treatment method is. Something really cool we've done in open space is biocontrol projects. So we have, for example, worked with a rust fungus that is specific to Canada thistle, which is a noxious weed, and it is a perennial noxious weed, so it's very hard to deal with. Normally, herbicide is the only option for removing that weed. This particular biocontrol agent has done a phenomenal job treating that Canada thistle. So that's just an example of, choosing another tool in the toolbox besides herbicide. So, herbicide is still an important tool, especially when we're treating those perennial noxious weeds. Sometimes that's our only option, unfortunately, for like perennial pepperweed, things like that. But it's really important that if you are going to use herbicide, you need to have proper training, equipment, you need to know what you're spraying, you need to know what chemical you're using, you need to read the label. It's really more intensive than I think a lot of people think when they just start spraying all willy-nilly. So we try to really educate on IPM wherever we can. Outreach and education is another huge core of our program. So besides creating habitat, we're basically here to educate and get the word out about Bee City and as much as possible. So these are just examples of events we've done in the past. We've gone to Earth Day. We have been at the Carson City Farmers Market. We have done local plant sales. We've done special events where we're educating on planting for pollinators specifically. We go into schools as much as possible, and we've also worked with Camp Carson. So basically, anyone who will have us, we will go. These are all just examples of different events that we've had. And I always say that, really connecting with kids and educating kids is critically important because they're going to be the next pollinator stewards of tomorrow. So capturing their attention is especially important. And luckily, honey is a good way to do that. I mentioned the Carson City Library display. So June is Pollinator Month. Every June, you will see this pollinator display at the very front entrance of the library. I know the library receives, thousands of visitors every month. And so this is just a great passive way to educate on the importance of pollinators. And this is a very bright, beautiful, lovely visual way to kind of bring folks in and really draw attention to our program and the importance of protecting pollinators and give them some education while they're there. Another great event that Carson City has done since becoming a Bee City USA is the Pollinator Parade. So this is a costumed walk through downtown Carson at the end of June to celebrate Pollinator Month. This year is going to be really exciting. It's actually been upgraded to a Pollinator Palooza. That's what we're calling it. So we are partnering with the Nevada Museum the Nevada Museum, and and they are going to be kind of hosting us. And so there's going to be crafts and art and all kinds of things for sale. They're going to join us on our pollinator parade. And then I think we have stuff going over at the Carson Mall. There's folks going to be selling honey. So it's really turned into a whole situation. So we'd love to have any of you guys come out for that. And please put on your favorite pollinator outfit and join us. I wanted to spend a little minute talking about art. So the Bee City program has kind of spurned a lot of art in Carson City, which is an interesting partnership. So you've all probably seen some of the murals that have popped up around town. A lot of them have featured bees or butterflies. There was a moth one that I wanted to include, and I failed to include that one. We have this great one here on the community center. It's not bees or butterflies, but it is native plants. So it just shows kind of how much Carson City has really jumped on the bee bandwagon. The most recent event that was really cool, we partnered with the Nevada Artists Association over at the Brewery Arts Center, and they had a art show that was all about birds and bees. So the idea, you can see some of the panels in the lower left here. They were hexagonal panels. Artists could do either a bee or a bird. And Bee City was there talking about bees, and the Audubon Society was there talking about birds. So it was a great educational kind of art combo, and just another great way to spread awareness about bees and birds too. So I mentioned June's National Pollinator Month, and then we have actually a Pollinator Week, June 16th through the 22nd. So we have some events already in the queue. I mentioned, the library display and the Palooza. We'll also have an event at the Greenhouse Garden Center where we'll be partnering with them to kind of talk about the importance of bees and planting for them. So there will probably be more events to come, and they're all listed on our website, which I will show you here in a second. But we try to really pack June with as many events as possible. Just an all call for anyone who may be listening. Our steering committee is always looking for new members. So we are a small but mighty team, like many committees. And so anyone out there who might be interested in pollinator conservation or who might want to join our committee to help with those habitat initiatives or those education initiatives, we'd love to have you. So that we have an email that's listed here, or you could reach out to myself to learn more. And with that, here is our website. That's where you can find the pollinator planting list and tons of other resources, information about our events. Got that email there again. So with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you. We'll start on this side this time, Jay. Any comments, questions?
I heard you reference sagebrush is okay to keep, but it's not in the list. But all the other brushes seem to be listed as yeses. Is that just because we already have so much sagebrush?
Great question. Sagebrush is not something that is a pollinator-friendly species specifically because the way the flowers are, they just don't have the nectar that those pollinator species are typically looking for. That doesn't mean that sagebrush isn't important, but it's just not one that feeds the bees specifically. So yeah, that's a good question.
Lindsay, I don't know how you sleep because you are involved in so many wonderful things. And I thank you. I thank you for doing this. And this is wonderful. Like, my only question is, where does the pollen palooza meet?
So we're going to be meeting at is it the Nevada State Museum? That's that's the name. I was searching for that earlier. So yeah, we'll be at the Nevada State Museum downtown. That's where we'll be meeting. And like I said, there's going to be art for sale, crafts for sale. There's like chalk art for the kids. There's going to be a bunch of activities and things in conjunction with the Nevada State Museum. And then our parade will take off from there. We'll do kind of a circle through downtown and then meet back at the Nevada State Museum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You were being.
You're welcome. I'm good.
Good. Actually, I had talked to Lindsay about a little while ago about this because when I worked for state parks, we allowed a beekeeper to put his, what's the term? Those big boxes. Hives. There we go. Looking for a term there. So we allowed him to do that, and I hadn't dealt with this in open space that bees be an integral part of our management of the sites. But I know you can put one of those bee things in your backyard, but I was surprised that nobody on open space has asked for that. But she said
The
that-
hotel?
huh?
The hotels? Bee
No.
hotel?
The one where you actually get the honey and everything.
Oh, the hive.
Hive, yes.
Huh.
The ranchers, like you said, they all move them around the place wherever they're needed, but that's one way open space, because part of the bee program has allowed those to be on open space in areas that we're not concerned. Like we talked about the Schultz Ranch, where you could be half a mile from anybody that's visiting the open space, or up in some of those other areas. So I just thought we'd be informed, because I know we had the best bee person in the country probably sitting here in front of us, to give us information how integral and how bees play a big role in what we do, and we don't really pay attention to it very much. But that's why we need Lindsay's in the world to keep us on task here. So I don't think it's a policy that needs to be written. It's just an understanding from this group that we can do maybe beehives out in the open space in places if somebody wants to caretake them. It isn't going to be for the rangers to have to put them out there and take care of them, other than you guys would all have free honey for the winter when you got done. But so that's my comment, and if anybody has anything to that, that's why I thought this would be really interesting and a good meeting with not a lot on the agenda to show what a great program we have in the city, thanks to Lindsay. Number 76, that's a cool number too, actually.
I'd like to throw this out. My husband and I used to have a hive, and I think one of the problems is our beekeeper moved and she took her hive. And I don't know if there's enough trained beekeepers out there, because we would love to have another hive in our backyard. But you need the beekeeper to come help you because they have the expertise. So if anyone's listening, we'll take a hive.
I assume you have a list of people that are the bee. Isn't there a group that meets?
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay Boyer for the record. So we work really closely with the Great Basin Beekeepers of Nevada. They were the original kind of nonprofit that helped spearhead this whole effort. So we do have a group of beekeepers that we can tap into. I think with any thing like that, you know, the amount of people who are beekeeping is going down. They try to do lots of trainings to get new beekeepers, you know, kind of trained up. But related to your point, Mr. Chair, we have had hives at Buzzy's Ranch before. So that was kind of a good example of being able to have hives in a place where we don't have a lot of public. So we don't have to worry about, you know, anyone getting stung. It wasn't near a trail or anything like that. So that's certainly something that, you know, we would be interested in. Again, I think the issue there is that whoever the beekeeper was just didn't kind of keep track of them. And so unfortunately the hive kind of dropped off. But I think definitely we can help be a resource for people who are trying to get connected with the bee group, the group of beekeepers, because, you know, there may be folks out there who are looking for places to put their hives, for sure.
Great Basin knows I want a hive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know Buzzy's Ranch used to have alfalfa, and isn't alfalfa a species that's important to have the bees with? So maybe that's when the bees were there, is when the alfalfa was growing there. They quit doing that. So not they, we, I guess is the word. Any other comments? Danny, I'm going to move on with this. Is discussion only, so I'll allow you and a couple up here. We come up, okay? No, not now. I meant, let me get 2 more agenda items done under, because they're not action items. Thank you. Staff updates, director's report. Updates regarding the department's projects, programs, facilities, and events, grants, status of employee promotions, and recruitment for vacant positions, fiscal year 2026 budget, 83rd Nevada legislative session, and Board of Supervisors action items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. From the open space team, I'm just really proud to announce that Bob Tonseth was promoted to our open space foreman position. We're really excited to have him in that position. And then I think Lindsay is about to fill the vacant open space maintenance worker position, or they're about to start, which is really great. We have a really amazing maintenance team for open space. Obviously, they have thousands of acres they have to care for, so they do a lot of work. I do always want to just try to plug our seasonal positions. Every position is open and available, from youth to sports to being a lifeguard at the pool. Great summer jobs, great opportunity for youth employment as well. For budget updates, the Board of Supervisors will consider the tentative budget for the entire city at the May 1st Board of Supervisors meeting. This will include capital items and staffing requests. I don't anticipate any challenges or concerns about the open space budget. The parks budget might be another conversation, but the open space budget is looking good. We've included planning for water rights acquisition over time and everything that we've discussed with this board, including any fleet requests and our rolling stock for equipment. And there's some shared equipment portions with parks, which is great. It makes our budget go that much further by sharing among different funds. But keep an eye on that, and I'll make sure that we report back to you on how that goes. Any questions on the budget before I move on to the legislature?
So there's no impact legislation sitting on the shelf this time, like the inmate salaries or any hidden things like that, huh?
Yes, there are.
Oh.
So I'll give you that next. So just a couple bills that we're still monitoring. Obviously, the legislature just had a critical deadline, so a lot of bills have died, but I wanted to just give you a few updates on some items that we're monitoring that bills are still alive. There's AB 215, and that's restrictions regarding employment of minors. The city is likely the largest employer for youth in Carson City, so we are definitely watching that. It would provide additional restrictions on how many days a week they can work, the hours they can work, and other things like that. We always want to make things as flexible for parents as possible and for youth to be able to work after school and on the weekends.
What age do you consider a minor?
Under 18.
So 14, you can even hire them less than that, huh?
The earliest we hire is 15 years old.
There you go. Thank you.
Cashier at the pool, best job. No experience. AB 429 is regarding conservation easements and relinquishment, so timely based on our discussion tonight. This bill allows any person, including the state and local agencies, to create, change, or end a conservation easement in the same manner as other easements. It further clarifies that conservation easements last indefinitely unless otherwise stated or terminated by a court, and existing property rights are unaffected unless the property owner agrees. So it's really just creating further clarifications about that. We'll continue to monitor it. We don't have any concerns right now with the bill as written. SB 21 is Conserve Nevada funding. That was formerly State Question 1, which we purchased a lot of our open space through that program, including Buzzy's Ranch. That is really just creating other opportunities for outdoor education and park infrastructure projects and expanding further on what those grant funds can be used for. So we're in support of that as written right now. SB 334 is increasing the wage for hiring offenders for minimum wage. So that is something that we're watching. The city does employ 15 to 18 inmates on a daily basis, depending on the time of year and what projects we have going on. So that is of concern for us, absolutely. AB 350, cemetery operations regarding disinterment and maintenance standards. We do have what I call an active cemetery, so we still do burials at Lone Mountain Cemetery. We do have really high maintenance standards there, but we are keeping an eye on that as well to make sure it doesn't impact anything that we're trying to do for the benefit of that property. And then SB 405 is a Transit to Trails Task Force creation, similar to the Rails to Trails program. I think it would be very beneficial to have that task force. We have a lot of benefits from the railroad history in town that could benefit opportunities for outdoor recreation. And that's it. Any questions on those? And I can keep updating you as we move forward in the legislative session.
The bill that has to do with conservation easements, is that a modification of an existing statute?
Yes.
And it's trying, what is the purpose of the bill? I'm sorry.
It's trying to clarify, the original intent was brought from the state of Nevada because they were trying to put a conservation easement on existing state property. So it's giving government agencies opportunities to be able to do that and impose those easements if they need to, but further clarifying the purpose of those easements, and then if there's any legal action or something to relinquish an easement or enter into a new easement, just really clarifying those items. So I have talked to Nevada Land Trust and a few other state partners about this bill. They don't have any concerns right now, but we'll continue to monitor that.
Okay.
It wouldn't impact our existing conservation easement.
Okay.
Who keeps an eye on the legislature? Is there a person?
We have Cameron Gresh is our government affairs officer. He's also our public information officer.
So he's probably a busy guy for a few months here, and then he gets a lot of free time for a while.
He's very busy. He's been great. He meets with us weekly, keeps us updated, and then we have a spreadsheet that we all share information on so we can stay updated.
Pretty important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jen. Good report.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, we'll move on then to the next 6B, Trail Coordinator Report. Activities related to trail projects managed by the Carson City Parks, Recreation, Open Space Department, including trail-related grants, programs, and events. Greg, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So for the record, Greg Berger, Trails Coordinator, and I just wanted to first point out an oversight on Lindsay's part on the PowerPoint that she did on the slide that showed the birds and the bees, the art show at the Uri Art Center. She failed to mention that one of the hexagonal pieces is her original work of art, and I think it is probably still for sale down there. So,
Her mom and dad gonna go and buy it or something?
Anyway, happy Earth Day tomorrow. And so our Carson River Trail System Phase 3 Prison Hill Trail West project will reach substantial completion in the next 2-3 weeks at the most. After that, we'll have a few little things to do. We've got some interpretive signs to put up and a little bit more fencing, but it'll be essentially complete. And I know you all received an invitation to come to the ribbon cutting on June 14th at 9 a.m. at the new Coons Lane Trailhead. I hope you can all attend. And again, Reno Adaptive will be there with a variety of adaptive mountain bikes that'll be, fitted for people with, variety of disabilities. And we're doing that to really highlight one of the really important aspects of this trail, which is that it is accessible to persons of all ages and abilities. And that'll be really obvious to anyone when you see it on June 14th. So, moving on, Riverview Park Trailhead. We'll be entering the design and engineering phase in the next few months. And I just wanted to point out that for the public that there will be opportunities for the public, especially the neighbors in the neighborhood of Riverview Park Trailhead to have input into that project. The Carson River Trail project. So we have now essentially rebranded 5 segments of trail along the Carson River to create the Carson River Trail. It has its own logo, and we put up 8 signs at strategic locations, the beginning and the end, and anywhere where a trail intersects the Carson River Trail. And that the signs have a map with pointing out where you are here, and some various share the trail messaging. And yeah, so the only thing we have left to do with that project is place 4 interpretive signs, which are being produced right now, and that grant will be able to close out. So that's another trail that I hope that you can get out and enjoy this summer. And speaking of the Carson River Trail, so one of the segments of that trail, the Buzzy's Ranch Trail, was recently included in National Audubon's Birdability website. So Birdability it's a part of Audubon that is committed to making the birding community and the outdoors accessible, safe, and welcoming and inclusive for everybody and everybody. So the Buzzy's Ranch section or segment of the Carson River Trail is perfect for this because it's accessible to persons of all ages and abilities. We already have interpretive signage out there talking about the birds of the Carson River. And my understanding from NDOW is that throughout the year, there's about 200 species of birds that make their way through the Carson River at some time. So we hope to that will be a nice addition to Carson City to have that on their website. And then lastly, we installed a vault toilet at the Prison Hill OHV area, the south end of Prison Hill. So we now have a vault toilet on all 4 sides of Prison Hill. And it's a very nice addition to have a permanent structure down there. And lastly, I wanted to mention that coming up in early June, the Carson City to Canada Quest is going to be launching. So our 2 candidates, Jules Mahoney and Audie Payne, will be leaving from the steps of the Capitol, and they'll be starting their journey to Canada, 1,600 miles. So that will be there'll be a press event at the steps of the Capitol at some point coming up real soon. We'll let you know as we get closer and we get a date on that. The actual date of their departure will be kept anonymous because for their safety, it's there are two women that are going to be heading out into the wilderness by themselves. They're not necessarily hiking with each other. They're 2 independent hikers, and so we don't want to announce the actual date that they start their hike. But really excited about that. Carson City has gotten a lot of media attention through that program that Visit Carson City developed, or through that PR, and we've been, because of that announcement and because of that opportunity, we have been in a number of international travel magazines. We've been in the San Francisco Chronicle, the LA Times, the Sacramento Bee. We've been on several radio stations. We had the applicants to do the quest, we had over 360 applicants. And so it was a big job combing through those and getting down to interview a few and then picking the two finalists. So we're really excited to get that started and looking forward to watching their adventures as they make their way along that trail over the next few months. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
So they turned down your application, I guess, then out of 360. What do they get? $5,000?
They get $5,000 each if they make it to Canada, $2,500 if they make it halfway. But we're confident that these two will be able to do the whole trek, barring some unforeseen circumstance.
Cool. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, great job on the Prison Hill Trail again. I mean, that needs to be said. We don't get a chance to meet here until then. Looking forward to the ribbon cutting or the event there. But no, great job on that. That's gone very well, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll second that.
Mm-hmm. And also, I really like the Carson River Trail with the 8 segments, with the signs, because if someone gets ill or injured, they have an idea of where they are, much like how state parks started marking the Flume Trail with mile markers. So you weren't just, we're on the Flume Trail, well, it's 4.5 miles long. So that's really a nice setup there to help people in case they're in need.
Well, I have a couple of questions after the accolades, but the accolades won't dissolve from this. So is the Prison Hill Trailhead Trail that takes you down to Silver Saddle, your new wonderful trail, is that the right steepness for these adapt type of
Yeah, that's a good question. And so it was designed with AASHTO standards to be accommodating to adaptive mountain bikes as well as regular mountain bikes and or regular bicycles and walkers and everything of all abilities. And so it does meet those standards, and where 7.5% is the max, and then there's plenty of resting points along the way. So yeah, it does.
meets them then. Yeah, it just seems steep when you're walking it. When you're coming back after you, yeah, it's just
That's right.
might have to do with my ability and health at that point, but that seems steep. So that's great. I thought it would have been to put all that effort into it. And then one of the things I would suggest that maybe somebody puts on a list, but Silver Saddle turns to mud down there when you go out to the dam, and a couple sections out there. So it wouldn't take a lot of work to fix that. But if you're going to put the adaptive vehicles in there, you don't want them in there 4-wheel driving in the mud and stuff. So
Yeah, I know. That's another good question, and we have looked at that. The challenge with that particular piece of trail is that it's used to access the dam for the intake for the Mexican ditch, and so it gets that traffic on it. But yeah, I would like to at some point figure out a way to get some road base or something down there that would be a little bit more durable, because you're right, in the springtime it's kind of muddy, and then
winter, too.
it sort of heals itself as the season goes on, and it's fine the rest of the year, but that springtime.
well, the trail's braiding too, where people are going around them and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe Keith come up and you dig out 2 feet of that mud out, and he can engineer it for you. On
2
one of his
feet.
side projects.
There you go.
It's not a complaint, just a comment. So that's great. I don't have anything else for you, Greg. Do we? Nope. So we'll move to the next agenda item for discussion only. It's Marina's turn now. Senior Natural Resource Specialist and Open Space Manager report. Oh, both combined. Activities related to projects managed by Open Space Division, including updates within the Carson River corridor. Marina and Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lindsay Boyer for the record. I will start us off. So just some updates related to the Carson River. There is an update on a recent acquisition that Open Space had pursued. So There is a very, very small property, about 12,000 square feet, totally undevelopable property that's adjacent to the Carson River, and adjacent to the Buzzy's Ranch open space. It was a private property that, it was tax delinquent ultimately. So it was brought to the attention of open space that, through the tax delinquent status, that it could be available to come to Carson City. So given the fact that it's totally undevelopable and adjacent to the Carson River and was no cost to us, we definitely jumped at that opportunity. So that item was brought before the Board of Supervisors on February 20th. I believe there's like a 90-day period until it becomes official. So sometime in May, that property will officially be coming to Carson City. Again, it's a tiny little sliver, and mostly it's underwater. So it won't change much other than we're continuing to protect the river corridor, and add that into our arsenal. Update related to the Carson River Master Plan. So as you all know, we have been working on amending the Carson River Master Plan for a number of years now. We've been solidly in kind of a stakeholder engagement phase part of the project. So we had kind of a large stakeholder event, a workshop that was held on March 4th in conjunction with the Carson Water Subconservancy District Watershed Forum. So this was a great event. We had about 40 of our technical stakeholders attend that event. We had it over at the Rouveau Hall at the Governor's Mansion, which was a great site for it. We broke everyone into groups, and they reviewed a lot of our proposed directives and actions and things that we've been developing over time that have come out of the public survey and the stakeholder survey and some of the other stakeholder events that we've had. So that was a great event. It was a very intensive event. Our partners with the National Park Service, unfortunately, due to outstanding circumstances, they could not attend kind of at the last minute. So we had to jump in and figure out how to be facilitators of a workshop. And I think the team did a great job. So we were very proud of that. We got a lot of great feedback out of that event. And then we are kind of starting up our public engagement portion of the project as well. So on April 30th, we'll be hosting the Carson River Open House. It'll be located here at the community center in the theater lobby area. So the idea is that'll be a time for the public to come and kind of give input on some of those actions and directives and things that we've been putting together for the plan. But we also wanted it to be an educational opportunity for the public as well. So we invited several different agency partners to have tables at that event. So we'll be joined by Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. They'll be talking about mercury in the river, which is a hot topic. Carson Water Subconservancy District will be there. We'll be talking about flooding and water quality issues. The stormwater, Carson City Stormwater Division will be there as well, talking about flooding. And then River Wranglers, who's the kind of educational nonprofit that we work with. They'll be there to talk about kind of the flora and fauna of the river, and then they'll also be helping us lead a station for the kids. We're going to look for help coming up with a Carson River mascot that will be used in a variety of ways moving forward. So we're excited for this event. We invite everyone listening, the whole public, anyone concerned with the river or recreates on the river, cares about the river at all, to come out and participate in this event and comment on our plan, and also an opportunity to learn more about the river from some of our technical experts. So that's kind of the Carson River. And then related to Buzzy's Ranch, the water rights acquisition process is just ongoing. These acquisitions always move slower than we think, but I continue to plug away on it. One of the main things that we're working on right now, as mentioned before, there's a couple due diligence items that's required for the SNPLMA project. We have to do a water study and a water report, and those will help inform kind of the next phases of the acquisition. So we are working on those. One of them, the water study, has to be completed during the irrigation season. So that kind of just started April 1st, and they'll be working on that through the fall. So I'll continue to update you on that and when we get closer to actually moving forward on an acquisition. And then just kind of a couple presentations that have been made recently. We had been invited in March to go before the advisory board on outdoor recreation. This particular advisory board is chaired by the Lieutenant Governor, Anthony Stavros, or Stavros Anthony, excuse me. So he was there, as well as a lot of various agency staff throughout the state who are kind of majorly involved in outdoor recreation. So Greg and I attended that advisory board. We gave a presentation on open space and the quality of life initiative and kind of what we've done with that funding since the passage in 1996. We got lots of great questions and comments, and we'll probably get invited to give that presentation more than once because a lot of people were very interested in what Carson City's been able to do. So it's always a good time to brag about open space for sure. And then I had been invited to the Cooperative Extension Bee and Garden Conference down in Minden. So I came and gave very similar presentation about Bee City that I gave today. So basically, anytime we're invited to give a presentation, we'll give it. So I think with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Marina. Just one more. Jen had mentioned that we would be refilling one of our open space maintenance worker positions. So they actually just started today. So Kyle Vonderwerth is his name. He was backfilling the position that Bob Tonseth had been in. So yeah, he just started today. We're super lucky to have him. He had come from a background of the Conservation Corps, so Nevada Conservation Corps and Walker Basin Conservancy. So he's got a big trail background. We're excited to have him. So as Jen mentioned, we have a really, really good maintenance team right now. So we are excited. And with that, I will turn it over to Marina.
For the record, Marina Lovejoy, Senior Natural Resource Specialist. I will tell you all about some education and outreach that we've done recently. It was Trout in the Classroom. Erin, our volunteer coordinator, and I met with about 150 students from 4 to 5 classrooms from 3 schools this year: Carson Montessori, Border Witch Bray Elementary, and Eagle Valley Middle School. So like every year, Trout in the Classroom, right? River Wranglers goes into the classroom and provides education on trout. And then a few weeks later, some of those students are lucky enough to come to the river and release trout that have been growing up in their classrooms. So that was a really fabulous time with the students. They all get really excited to come to the Carson River and also Bailey's Pond. We had an event there. Trails Challenge. Erin Larson, our volunteer coordinator, again, is doing a fabulous job. She launched the second ever Trails Challenge for Carson City. So 22 of our trails are part of the Trails Challenge this year. And basically, you just have to complete 5 trails on that list and send your login to Erin. It's the honor system. And once you do that, you get entered into a raffle. And we have phenomenal raffle prizes this year. Erin was even telling me that the business association in town is interested. Lots of businesses in town are interested in donating prizes for that raffle. So we have, as of today, 325 people signed up for the Trails Challenge compared with 272 last year. So the word is getting out about the fabulous things that we do here in Carson City, which is just great. I do have a flyer on the back table that Erin designed for more information there if you're interested. Let's see, in the sheep. It's sheep season again. This is the 19th year. The sheep are currently in 2 bands. The north band right now is behind the Timberline neighborhood, grazing north of Combs Canyon. About 900 sheep there in that band. They'll be leaving Carson City by the end of the month to move on to a grazing site in Washoe. And then the south band is currently grazing the hills behind Greenhouse Garden Center. They'll be grazing in Carson City, working their way around Sea Hill over the next few weeks, and then ultimately wrapping up grazing in Carson by the end of May. So in total, about 2,400 sheep this year. Get out and see them. They're super cute. I'm going to do a annual sheep talk, we call it, probably end of next week, depending on when the sheep get to the Sea Hill area. So stay tuned for that on our website, carson.org/sheep. New this year also, I developed a new sign layout to add 2 more trailheads to keep the public apprised of where the sheep are. I will also share that we were awarded a grant that's coming down from the Forest Service through the state that's going to help us pay for watering the sheep, pay the fire department for watering the sheep, and pay for some fencing and some other supplies as well. So I'm really excited about that. And then I want to draw your attention to some upcoming events that we have. Lots of park ranger events as always, volunteer events. A new event that we're doing this year that Aaron Larson is leading is the City Nature Challenge, which is, I think it's an international event that really encourages people to get out into their communities and do kind of like a bio blitz, if you're familiar, using the iNaturalist app to kind of catalog flora and fauna in their area. So Aaron and I are going to do, and the park rangers are going to do 2 guided hikes to teach people about the iNaturalist app and talk about flora and fauna in the area, and then send people on their way to make their own observations. And then I also want to mention a volunteer event that's happening on Saturday, May 10th. Coordinated rewrapping of our community cleanup trailer. If any of you have seen that, there's a fresh design. It's pretty lovely. So that's going to be revealed on May 10th, as well as a number of shrubs and flowers are going to be planted at Lone Mountain Cemetery. So flyers for all of those things are on the back table. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Start this side, Jay.
I have a question about the sheep. Is it possible for next year to get them on the burn area of Prison Hill? Because it's just massive sheet grass.
Yeah, that's a great question. I suppose it is possible. However, I'll probably talk about this several meetings from now, but we're going to do herbicide trials out there to work on cutting down that cheatgrass. And then we're going to go in with many thousands of pounds of seeds and hopefully work to restore that area. So stay tuned, but we're definitely thinking about how we can repair that sore thumb out there, yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that because they've taken over as usual.
Keith?
Nothing.
No?
No, thank you. It's a good report. I just want to mention that trout rearing program was featured in Trout Magazine last month. Not our chapter is the Sagebrush chapter. It was featured the Hemingway chapter over in Wyoming. The Teton area. But anyway, yeah, that program has become really successful, especially for the getting young kids involved in rearing trout in the class and then releasing. That was pretty cool. I'll put in for our chapter to get in there next issue. I've been in Trout Unlimited for 30 years, so yeah. I'm sure I must have some pull at this point. Yeah.
Well, you'll test it.
I'll pull in some markers.
You'll test it, yeah. Good reports. And I'm amazed by the attention those sheep get, the press and stuff. I mean, every channel on TV every year loves to report the sheep report over there. Has he ever had predator problems? Do you know?
Dogs are actually a pretty big problem. Yeah,
Those damn
yeah.
dogs.
So we really encourage people to keep their dogs leashed or leave them at home when they're in areas where the sheep are at. Yeah.
Does a tender have some authority to do something?
Well, he certainly seeks payment when sheep are killed by dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, they have spray for dogs versus people, but red pepper spray.
Mm.
They don't like that. Doesn't kill them, and just they don't like that. Yeah, that would be a bummer to watch him chase the sheep around. Well, that's good because that means it's not a challenge for you guys to have that happen on the mountainside. You're not having all these encounters that are all negative and making a mess of it. That'd be quite the trick, though, to haul that many sheep over to Prison Hill, maybe, though, huh? just run them over on the highway. One on the,
Maybe the city can buy a couple of pets.
yeah. Trained, yeah, wild sheep in there. No, that's every time it's good reports and good stuff with the master plan. I'm so excited that that much attention's been placed on the river. And that's the only time, and I have years of planning experience that I've ever seen planning involving the community, such as Carson Waters, having separate booths. It's more of a learning experience rather than come look at a map and tell me what you think. It's interactive, and people have a chance to have comments at all different levels and discussions and meet private. I think that's a wonderful forum. So I hope we get the attendance that wouldn't surprise me because we sure got a lot of stakeholders showing up. So
Part of the sheep program is having actual sheep dogs that protect.
he's got some
the
pups
flocks.
that heal them. Yeah, I don't know if they get mad at other dogs. They might, huh? I don't know if they're protective or not.
There's signs that like I was on the Lincoln bypass this way, and there's a sign saying, "Don't approach the sheep because the dog will eat you. It'll just chase you right down.
Eat you.
You'll become dog food if you press the
Come
issue.
down and heal you maybe and bite your back of your ankle. But,
As you're running away.
that's funny. Anything else? Danny, I'll call for public comment now after these four for discussions only. So I'll call for public comment, but I'm also going to call it at the end like I'm supposed to. So it's your call here, Denny, if you want to come now or. That's fine. That's part of the program, but these four discussions only, I don't have to call public comment, but you've been given four people speaking, so.
Does that mean I'm ready? Denny French, Carson City, and I didn't bring the timer. Somebody hit the mark. Denny French, Carson City. We'll repeat that. I really appreciated the presentations as well. Several observations during such. I would suggest that the bee hotels have some space between them and observers. Bees don't want to be messed with by people, and people that are little bits that are poking into their hotel rooms are not really conducive to their comfort and well-being. So I would appreciate maybe a consideration for some space between the hotel there at the bee preservation up near the hospital be considered so that those bees have a little bit more space, privacy, and for entrance and exits. So that's a consideration. Also, I'd just like to say that the trails preservation for the river and the new signage is very welcome in my deal as far as that goes. I'm wondering, though, in the presentation, it was brought up that there was going to be that in the lobby there on the 30th, I believe, and I'm wondering if that will include the engineering considerations for the bank erosion. And if it will, I'd like to have that mentioned in the information that's coming up and introducing that particular day's events. Have that on the agenda so people know they can come and see if that's part of it or not. I didn't hear, it didn't sound to be, but I think it might be. So the engineering part, I'm a little bit more than a little bit leery of. I'd like to have it more of a natural way of relating to erosion than an engineer coming in with more big boulders and, those type of considerations. So as far as the Buzzy Ranch part of the river. And I also think there were several areas that the new bathroom up at the Kuntz, I noticed that it has an electronic door, and I was a little uncomfortable going in. I'm not real good at getting out of places that are electronically closed, and I was a little uncomfortable with that. Wanted to put a rock in the door so it wouldn't close in case it were to lock behind me and I wouldn't be able to get out. So that was a concern. I don't like things that have places to block me in. I like doors that open in so I can do that. But the main thing is the timing on that. The last time I checked there, the timing was before or around 5 it was locked. And I'm wondering if that will remain such or if they're going to lengthen the time that restroom is open. And I also made an observation. I carry my own hand sanitizer and my own private business needs, but there is no hand sanitizer. And I brought it up at the last opportunity I had to do any comment was, is that required? I thought in some work stations for restrooms it was. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go to item 7 on the member announcements and requests for information. Update from the, oh, that's an update from the foundation, but our foundation member is not here. So I wasn't privy to anything that she had. Did she send anything to you, Lindsay?
Lindsay Boyer for the record. So included within your packet is a written update from the foundation. So, in lieu of someone always being able to attend, we'll have that written update for you guys.
So Aaron, okay, that's fine. Great.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in real quick?
You can always jump in.
Sorry.
Jen.
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to clarify the reason we have the Parks Foundation update as a standing item on this board agenda is because the purpose of the Foundation for Carson City Parks and Recreation is to support the Carson City Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. So their whole purpose is to support the department, which includes open space. They just asked for a list of potential projects to fund. We included open space projects, especially volunteer projects, on their list. And they're going to try to help us fund some of those things that are gaps in our budget where we can't move forward because of funding constraints. So they're really trying to expand their support for open space. And I just wanted to clarify why that's there. And like Lindsay said, they can't always attend, but they want to keep you updated on what they're doing, and they're trying to increase their membership and do better. But again, to support our department, which includes open space.
Well, actually, I read that in the minutes that there's some projects you're active for, so I called Lindsay, but she's been busy, but I have a proposal, so hold one of those spots for open space.
Absolutely. And to clarify, Aaron Donnelly on this
Right.
committee is the liaison from open space to the Parks Foundation. So I feel it's very pertinent that we're updated with them, and hopefully we get 100% membership from this board, the Cultural Commission, and the Parks and Rec Commission to be members of that foundation because of their purpose. So
Right.
that is our goal, is for 100% board membership.
Well,
if we can do that.
There's some new leadership that seems to be helping a lot.
It's really been wonderful and a refreshing change, and I think they're really trying to make an impact, which is
I can tell.
great.
Yeah, that's excellent. So the update, I guess everybody just can read it. Essentially, it's in the package. So. And we'll pick on Erin when she comes back. That her first chance to share didn't happen for her. Okay, so member announcements and the same thing. That's where I guess we're supposed to be, is on 7. So is there any member announcements, questions, items? I have a couple. One of them is something that's out of the box out of kind of maybe the purview of this committee, but and Jay's going to listen to this. Nevada Energy got all those grants for the fire department to denude underneath all the power lines, but they didn't do any replant. Zip, nada. So now it's going to turn into the biggest weed patch in Carson City, several acres of gigantic patches of weeds. So open space, I don't know if they ended up having power lines in their turf that were stripped. If they were, it's a bummer that the sponsors for that granted it wouldn't have paid for reseeding it. I think that was somebody goofed, let the ball fall on that one. So I know that's not your purview, but it might be if you have pieces within those areas they've cleared, and maybe you've had those discussions. Do you have comment to that, Lindsay?
Yeah, Lindsay Boyer for the record. So we do have several areas on open space where there are power lines. One of them goes through Silver Saddle Ranch, one goes through East Silver Saddle, perhaps a few other locations. So we watch those as far as those weed populations coming back, are the fine fuels, the mustards, the cheatgrass. And I believe we have done pre-emergent applications in the past to keep those weeds down. So ultimately, yeah, they go in and they do the initial treatment, and then kind of we're responsible. It'd be an interesting question with NV Energy to know if they want replanting to be done under there, since the whole point is for the fuel reduction and reducing fire risk. So it would be an interesting conversation to have to see how they want those to look. But my understanding is that they're meant to be, that kind of solid vegetation-free fuel break. So we use pre-emergent typically to keep them weed-free.
Okay. So that takes care of open space's responsibility. So I was just curious about that happened that way and without following up on it. So also on the list was you sent out an email about the float trip on allowing 3 participants from this group. So we're not in a quorum, I thought, but I thought we could bypass that if we're on a recreational trip.
Yeah, so just to clarify that, so one of the final items we're doing for our stakeholder trip is that we're having an open space float. It is just for our stakeholders who've participated in the whole effort thus far. You guys are all stakeholders. I confirmed that that would not cause a quorum issue, but we only have 25 spots for all of the stakeholders that we worked with this whole time. So I thought that we could maybe limit it to just a few OSAC members so that we're not taking up all of those spots with OSAC members. However, if that's 25 spots in our rafts. So if anyone has a kayak or canoe or what have you and want to join outside the rafts, then we could
Jet ski?
we could take all of you. No jet skis, please.
Do you have kayaks available?
And we do
as
have
well?
kayaks available
Little
through the
training
recreation
there, I know.
division. Yeah. So yeah, definitely you are all invited and can be included. It just was trying to maximize how many stakeholders we had
I
at the
guess
event.
it might be a quorum if we're all on the same raft.
Because we're all going to be drinking beer. And,
We're going to be in our own
Oh.
kayaks.
yeah, I know. That's when there's sometimes that's troubling how you can't do that. But I know you can do these because the Board of Supervisors meet all the time for ribbon cuttings or social events and
Where's
stuff.
that
So
starting?
It's going to start at East Silver Saddle Ranch,
Okay,
and we're
yeah.
going to float down to Morgan Mill. But everyone's meeting at Morgan Mill, and then we'll shuttle you up to the put-in location.
I sent my app in already, and they said there's still 23 left or something. So,
Perfect.
so I
We
can
have a spot
get in
designated
the front.
special
I
for
want
you,
to be the
Mark.
captain. So I wanted to just give everybody the opportunity, if you read that, but that yet going on the float trips, it's nothing you're going to worry about being dumped off your raft in Whitewater, that's for sure. But,
Sounds great.
pretty mellow trip, but I'm going to try to talk them into going down through Burton Ellie's when they're done. We'll see if I
I was going
get
to say, let's just
see if I can get
extend
Lynn
it.
Zong
Let's
to make a
extend it.
mistake there, and we go, oops. Then the last thing I saw, Muscle Power's doing some stuff on open space, and such as events and tic-tac-toe thing or whatever it was, and some really cool stuff.
That's
So-
all on Muscle Power Dollar. May is Bike Month.
Right, I know. I was just curious if the staff have been involved with the participation from Muscle Powered. So it's like a joint project kind of deal. I figured you just hadn't put it in any of the package or anything. But
Trails Challenge.
It is. We're calling ours Bingo. and
oh, that's
yours
what it's
is
not tic-tac-toe,
Bike
bingo. I saw that. And then they have opportunities to go places. So if you're not a Muscle Power member, I don't think this board gets those emails, though, if you're not a Muscle Powered member, which I am. but-
I do. I'm on the board.
So you would know what Muscle Powered's doing out on open spaces, and that's this great relationship that we're extremely lucky to have, is to have Muscle Powered in this community to support all of Greg's work and all the trail stuff. So it's great when they're doing public events too. And
Carson, May 4th. That's a big one.
yeah, I remember I did that one time when Dennis was doing it. So that's all my comments for under my comment section. Anybody else have anything else? Future agenda items. The next one's going to be a busy one, so bring your sleeping bag. No. I'm just kidding. Bring a snack, then at least. That'll be a long meeting because there's a lot on that agenda. So I don't think you guys are open to put anything new on the agenda for the next meeting. It's our joint meeting with Parks and Rec. And that's going to take a little bit of time. So we haven't been together for quite a while, so it'll be a pretty good meeting. So, any comments to any other future item agenda things that you have that you might want to have after the joint meeting? Because it's pretty minimal in the next one with by ourselves so far.
I did just want to request, I didn't hear a report on the bank stabilization, any updates on that particular project. And so it'd be good if, I don't know what's happening on that. It just didn't come up in any of the updates.
Yeah, Lindsay Boyer for the record. So that item came before OSAC last February. We heard a lot of public comment related to kind of the proposed engineering design. So we kind of regrouped after that meeting. We had all of the members out to that location. We are kind of tabling that for the time being while we get through the Carson River Master Plan process. We're hoping that that helps inform kind of some agreed upon restoration techniques, since the engineering design was not looked super favorably upon. So we don't have any updates to share on that at this time. Yeah, we're hoping a lot of that comes out of the Carson River Master Plan as far as effective and agreed upon embedded treatment options. So, but
Well, there were actually comments come from the stakeholders and the public that deal with the treatment for erosion on the river. So it's been talked about, Keith, but it hasn't been specifically put on a map and asked questions. So
Yeah.
this is for people's opportunity to come in and say, when they float around, to ask questions about that piece or any treatment of the river, we can at least answer that. We're working for people's comments to put it in the plan, and then you'll have a chance to speak to the plan.
Yeah, okay. I know that in our introduction, walk around, a tour, whatever we did, our field trip, that was talked about. And so I kind of felt like it was an active project and was just looking to see what was happening on that.
Nope, and the river just keeps rolling along,
Keeps rolling on.
and the flows will be good
Doesn't
this
look
year.
like it's going to get away from us this year.
Looks like a good raft trip, though, because 100% of normal will make it decent raft trip down the river there. So. Okay, so I am at a point where it's public comment. Again, Denny, before we close this out.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you bringing up NV Electric's consideration about those areas that they have denuded and then leave it to us to deal with the weeds and such. So I appreciate that. I had that same consideration when I sort of went to battle against NV Electric's intrusion onto Lone Mountain. I checked with all the tribes to make sure there was no religious significance to the hill. I checked with engineering to see if there was any safety issues with the hill. I looked at insect people to see if there were any insects that were protected, and everything I could to keep that trail from or those spaces from happening. One of the misconceptions or perhaps a miscue in a communications was that area was going to be immediately set with seed, and that hadn't happened at the point. In fact, NV Electric sent 4 people out to speak with me specifically about the considerations and concerns I had put forward, not only to the tribes, but also to the NV Electric specifically. But they actually came out just to have a day off, I think. I showed them paths where they needed to stay on, and they just walked everywhere. So I'm going, okay, how concerned are they? But they did come out. I have to give them credit for facing up to my considerations and concerns. They seemed relevant enough for them to do so. I don't want to see that happen wherever they are. That's why I'm very timid about wanting them to have any utility have access to places without first considering notifying the city of what their intents of, because they're able just to do whatever they want. They can clear, they can remove things, they can do all sorts of things with free run, and that's been a problem for me, a burr in my saddle, under my saddle. But I'd like to just say that I have 3 things. That the trout that they're going to be releasing, will it be edible? And once it's caught, and on the e-bike situation, are e-bikes determined by spikes or pedals, and or are they a certain amount of power that they will be, or speed that they're kept under? And if so, how will those be regulated and brought to task if they're going 100 gazillion miles an hour and I hadn't heard them coming? That trail is plenty wide for them to go around me unless I decide to go right when they're going that direction as well. And my limited access right now is just to Coons and several different places just from trailheads. So I'm seeing vehicles just buzz right through there. And they have tires on them the size of some motorcycles. And so I'm going, okay, that's a little bit of a concern, and I'd like to have that considered maybe in a future agenda item. How are you going to regulate that? When you say no motorized, electric to me is a motored vehicle, and an engine is a gas. So my thought is, how do you title it? How do you present it? Thank you.
That would be, Lindsay, maybe on our lightweight agenda, and we could put e-bikes on the agenda, certainly. That's a point that most people don't quite understand the different levels of, and what's legal or not. And Greg probably gets lots of questions every once in a while, which you can ride or what you can't ride, or some you can ride and then it goes on Forest Service land, then back on Carson City land. So that would be a good agenda item. So, and then actually the clearance, it's kind of a light note here. I used to lose a ton of golf balls at the golf course. Now they cleared all the sagebrush in the holes I allowed. So I've saved hundreds of golf balls here. So it did help me there. Took out acres of brush in the golf course, like unreal. All right, so I'm just looking for somebody to call for adjournment. Anybody?
I move to adjourn.
There we go. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Good.